Christopher Columbus was born in 1451 in Genoa and began sailing as a teenager. He owned a copy of Marco Polo's book, which had sparked his love for sailing. He was noted as one of the best sailors in his time to use a compass, especially while doing all of this at a young age. Columbus believed that sailing west from the mainland would be a faster way to get to India. Columbus went to Spain to speak with the Queen about sailing west after being rejected many times before. The Queen realized she may not have anything to lose and gave Columbus financing for his voyage west. In 1492, Columbus set sail with the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, roughly 87 men in total, and the first of 4 trips. 2 months after setting sail, the ships had reached the Bahamas. Truly having no clue where they were convinced they had reached India. The first island he reached he named San Salvador, even though it was already named Guanahani. He also referred to the locals as Indians, again thinking he was in India. Columbus was then perceived as a hero and a great voyager for his findings. After he made settlements on Haiti and the Dominican Republic, Columbus set sail back to Spain. Unfortunately for Columbus, the seas were rough for him and his crew's safety, and he was forced to dock in Portugal. This was a bad look for Columbus. Spain got the idea that he was giving Portugal valuable information, and the people of Spain went against him. After some time, the grudge Spain had held on him faded away, and he approached the Queen with his findings. The Queen was impressed and put him in charge of a bigger crew and voyage. He then returned to the Bahamas and found that his settlements were destroyed by the local people. Columbus took advantage of his power and his bigger crew and enslaved the indigenous people for what they did. They were kept as slaves mining for gold and rebuilding his settlements. With the Bahamas in his control, he decided to explore more islands in South America. Columbus was appointed the governor of Hispaniola, but the colonists were upset with his leadership and appealed to the rulers of Spain. They sent a new governor, Francisco de Bobadilla, and Columbus was taken prisoner on board a ship and sent back to Spain. In hindsight, this was ultimately the moral thing to do, considering Columbus had tortured the local people. Columbus and his men were released from prison after 6 weeks. He went on a final voyage for the Strait of Malacca. During his voyage, a hurricane had damaged his ship and they crashed onto Jamaica. Him and his crew were stranded on Jamaica for 2 years until they were rescued by people from Hispaniola and taken back to Spain. Once Columbus reached Spain, he grew very ill. He spent his last years writing letters attempting to regain the power and control he once had. Because of the allegations and failed voyages, he was continually denied. Christopher Columbus later passed away in 1506 due to illness and old age. He had never made it to Asia, nor did he discover America. Even when he died, he had still believed that he voyaged to the eastern part of Asia. To this day, he still has a federal holiday that falls on the second Monday of October and federally is seen as a hero. Columbus had sparked many voyages after his death and was one of the causes of exploration towards America. But looking back on his life and society today, how is he perceived? Like many voyages towards unknown land, there are indigenous people that are encountered. Columbus and his men had brought over disease that spread throughout the local population. He also enslaved the indigenous people and forced hard labor upon them. Even back then, this was seen as wrong and he was sentenced to jail for it. Nowadays, there are protests at Columbus Day parades and efforts to eliminate him from classroom curriculum and calls for changing the federal holiday. In 1991, numerous cities in a few states have adopted Indigenous Peoples Day. It is a holiday that celebrates the history and contributions of Native Americans, instead of Christopher Columbus. A protest against Columbus can easily be seen in Chula Vista, California. A Christopher Columbus statue stands in the middle of Discovery Park. Many people have vandalized it, showing their hatred towards Columbus.
At Discovery Community Park, look at this right here. Yesterday afternoon, the Christopher Columbus statue was cleaned up after being covered in red paint. The statue also had graffiti along the bottom and a bronze plaque was stolen. Police are now asking the community to let them know if they know anything about the vandalism. The suspects could be facing felony charges.
Although he started the voyage era, the way he handled it was poor. Christopher Columbus seemed very selfish in the ways that he voyaged. He wanted fame and acceptance from his people as he was rejected for most of his life. This threw morals out of the way as he only had his goal and fame in mind.